Today's talk is about starting down the path to one-to-one, and I'm hoping that a lot of our guests are in that early stage of thinking about this and really don't quite know where to start, because we have 3 districts who have been, this last school year, seriously engaged in the planning process. They were recipients of an innovation planning grant. It was a competitive grant that we offered at the beginning of the school year. And as part of that process, they had to form a leadership team, go through professional learning, contract an outside vendor so that they could do an infrastructure and pedagogical assessment, and then take both the learning and their assessment results and begin working on developing a plan. So they're going to share their different strategies and the stories that they've accumulated up into this point. And after we've heard from all 3 of them, we'll get an introduction to what has been described as a one-stop shop of comprehensive district-level planning tools, expert advice, creative ideas, and tangible suggestions from experienced education experts and a nonprofit education membership organization. Marianne Wolf of Project 24 with the Alliance for Excellent Education is going to show us how they are supporting systematic planning around the effective use of technology and digital learning. And this is an amazing opportunity, and it doesn't cost anything. So we're very excited to have her here sharing with us today. So to go ahead and begin, let's welcome Tina Key, representing Crawford County School District. And keep in mind, as Tina works through her presentation, we strongly encourage you to use that back channel to discuss ideas and share questions, because this is not a one-way discussion. We need to have some dialogue. So at the very end, we'll have a comprehensive Q&A where after all the speakers have presented. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Just appreciate this opportunity. My name is Tina Key. I'm with Crawford County Community School Corporation. I'm the Information Technology Director. When we began this process, there was so much chatter about one-to-one, and our first thought was a device for every student. Awesome, we want that, but where do we start? And the IDOE at that time was proposing the Indiana E-Learning Innovation Planning Grant. Our superintendent, Dr. Mark Eastridge, appointed 3 of our members to write our proposal. We were very blessed to be awarded one of those planning grants, and can't tell you how grateful we are to the IDOE for that opportunity. I can tell you with all certainty that we would not be where we are at this point without it. The time we have had to plan has helped our corporation gain a true understanding of what one-to-one actually looks like, and it has helped us avoid pitfalls that we might not have otherwise. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. There were 4 things that we did that stand out as crucial elements to me. Of course, the first thing was forming a diverse planning team. We wanted to be able to encourage complete corporation buy-in. This team grew from 5 to 10 in a matter of months. It's comprised of corporation leaders, teachers and support staff, Title I and technology staff, so that all departments have ownership. Action number 2, go ahead and change slides. We were very specific to our corporation's strengths and weaknesses when imagining our goals. While these goals here are very briefly described, we were very detailed about our strategies and how we would measure a success. The next screen talks about asking for help. Don't hesitate to seek out sources of assistance. There are so many great resources available, and just like you were saying today about Project 24, these people out here know how important it is for students' future to go this route. We also listened to EdTech community chatter to see where schools were at, Twitter chats at #INELearn. On Thursday evenings, we've attended a couple of those. We visited Crothersville and spoke with Drew Markle. We visited Scottsburg Middle School District 2. Kristen Nass is the principal there, and these schools are doing it right. We were able to see how teachers were implementing this in their classrooms. They also let us borrow a teacher rubric for expectations. 5-Star has also come in and done an instructional as well as a technological assessment for us as part of our grant. They helped us target crucial questions that we needed to ask our corporation We also researched the free My Big Campus student management system. We sent some of our teachers to their free trainings, and they bought into it, and they are running with it. We didn't make them a mandatory thing, but they love it. So we anticipate full implementation in 2014, 2015. And now to the next screen. We are 8 months into this and finally ready to put a plan together that hopefully encompasses every good thing that we've learned. Many times this year we thought, this journey is so unpredictable. We don't know what we are going to be able to accomplish. And I read in an article just this week in the Scholastic Administrator by Elizabeth Farrell, 10 Lessons from the Best District in the Country. Ms. Farrell quoted North Carolina's Mooresville School District's CTO Scott Smith. He said, "We're still building the plane as we fly it." Now, to me, that's pretty scary, but maybe it's okay if we don't always have a clear path in mind. However, we do have key components to our plan, and one important element will be our stakeholders. We anticipate forming student, teacher, and parent councils very quickly so that we have communication and support. Another key element will be our professional development for our teachers. We need to give them the support that so they have that for their classrooms. Our next step in this vision is to finish our plan and then put that plan into place. We are thrilled to be at the point where we are, but we're so much more excited about where we're going to go. If we can lend any advice in this, Mary, if you want to go ahead and flip to the next screen. Something that helped, Mark Slayton, Assistant Superintendent at Scott County School District 2, he emailed us and asked us questions of what we wanted to see and what was important to us before we went and visited them. So it helped us get our focus. You might find that very helpful. And then after the visit, document what you took away to share with your stakeholder community. And then we even emailed it back to the school that we visited so that we let them know how much we appreciated their help. The next slide is about being flexible during the whole process. When something just doesn't fit, don't feel defeated. We failed at a plan and ended up realizing one of our biggest solutions to another challenge. We thought tech support would be really crucial for us in each building, and it turns out that what we need most is the professional mentorship and development. And some of our peers are doing that. They are leading their peers. So that's been awesome. I would say the biggest realization for us is the mindset. So realizing that one-to-one is about mindset and not a device. We gave our AP students last year a netbook with very little teacher preparation or guidance, and it was a failure. They will tell you that. Teachers didn't use them in the curriculum, and students left them in the lockers. So to me, this said, one-to-one is about evolving from the worksheet, the lecture, the straight row culture to creating an interactive, learn at their own pace, student-focused environment. Teachers will move from that imparting content role to facilitating. Students will not be sitting quietly listening to a lecture. We saw that at Scottsburg. It was very challenging for us. Cultural change is difficult. The words of advice, be patient and encouraging. Change is not easy for some. Be prepared to repeat your goals often, post them everywhere, identify with your staff. Let them know you understand where they're at. It's a frightening thing, but you coach them through their resistance. Jason Roseberry, 5-Star Technology Solutions, he offered an Admin Academy session, and I cannot remember the resource. I've tried to find it, but he said that students ages 0 to 18 learn digitally, so we have to be student-focused. And lastly, on the screen, evaluating may seem scary at first, but it really can alleviate the teachers' fears, their stress, and their panic. if you give them sure guidelines of what is expected, they may be surprised at what they're already doing. One of our team members, Jill Stutzman, she's a junior high business teacher. She presented at our Board of Trustees meeting, and she said once she saw the engagement in her students on My Big Canvas, she was so excited and she would not go backward. Lastly, create a vision and communicate it with all of your stakeholders. The vision is going to give our corporation a clear-cut guideline of where we want to go, and it will become a part of our Advanced Ed initiative also. And this came about from just a planning team brainstorming session with one-liner goals. And in conclusion, I'd just like to say that we've asked ourselves, why do we do this? It's an awful lot of work, awful lot of hours. But this has become about engaging, motivating, and preparing our students. We have to be relevant and provide real-life skills so that they have every opportunity for a successful future, and the students are worth it.
Thank you so much, Tina. I'm just going to make sure everyone can hear me. And we are going to introduce the team from MSD Boone Township. And I'm going to go ahead and mute myself so that they can take a look.
Hi, this is Christy Stevens. Can you hear me? Hopefully. All right, so I'm a middle school English teacher, and I have with me Mike McClendon, who is also, he's a middle school social studies teacher, and our media specialist, Nicole Kovacic, with me today. So I'm just going to try and go through kind of at least what our plan has been and what we're in the process of doing right now with the planning grant that we received. So just a quick overview. We established something called a TILT committee, which I'll talk about in a second. We're working with a consultant. We're using a couple of assessments in atomic learning, e-learning. We've purchased a few devices, and then we've been talking about project-based learning and where we're going to go with our curriculum. And then we're applying all of that to our district's technology plan and our district's strategic plan. And if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, that would be great. So through the course of last year, we completed our district Advanced Ed accreditation. And as part of this planning grant, they work really well together. So our Corporation Technology Committee kind of morphed itself into what we call the Technology Integration Leadership Team, and that was part of this grant. And we really felt like, as we sat down and looked at our technology, the biggest problem is we know where we think we want to go, but we didn't really have a good plan in place to progress to that point. And we felt like, as opposed to, I know you were talking earlier about the idea of giving everyone the technology, but not really having staff be informed about what the best way, what best practices are, and those kinds of things. And so we felt like we needed to come up with a committee to plan and investigate a lot of those things. At this point, we've been meeting at least monthly, more often than that, and sometimes in subcommittees as well, to discuss, where we're headed with things and to also meet the goals of this grant. Really, one of the things that with Advanced Ed that we really learned is, as many places do, you operate in separate buildings. Well, we're K-12, we have one elementary, one middle school, and one high school, but yet we oftentimes are very separate. So trying to get the K-12 perspective has been a big push with this group. And everyone is represented equally on that committee, and that includes our technology consultants, and that's Lanier. We work with an outside corporation for that. The other issue is again, meeting the goals of our planning grant, but also of our school strategic plan. Okay, you can go to the next one. And this has really been a big part of our planning grant, and something that's been great. And I don't know if Stacy's unmuted herself or not. Dr. Stacy Truckless,
okay, okay.
has been an important person within our planning so far. And so I don't know if Stacy, you want to kind of talk a little bit about what you've been doing with our group, or what you will be doing as well.
Yeah. I think at this point we're starting to really let the rubber hit the road. We're You know, we've chosen our assessment tool, and now it's my job to compile the data as it comes in and report on it. But I've been involved since the start with the meetings, and it's been a lot of fun to see how the discussions have changed and evolved. And you know, I've seen my role as more of a guide, a facilitator, rather than to come and say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. No, that's not really my style anyway. But it's been neat. It's been neat to see how the conversations have kind of gone around all kinds of different ideas. And you know, sometimes they've liked things that I've put out there, sometimes they haven't, and that's okay. You know, we're all kind of learning this together. I have some experience from some other schools that I've worked with that have gone one-to-one. So, you know, to provide some of the input from those schools to sort of help Hebron out has been hopefully helpful to them. And so far, I think we have a really great working relationship too, which is really helpful. You know, because we've been able to establish a lot of trust. I can, you know, send Christy an email at any time, and she gets back to me, and we bounce ideas off each other, and it's really gone pretty well, I think, so far.
Absolutely. If you want to go ahead and switch to the next slide. So this was really our first goal. One of the things we felt with the planning grant that we were really lacking is we have lots of different strengths and different needs that need to be met within our district in terms of where we're at with technology. And so we really felt like the most important thing to do is, you know, instead of jumping right in with professional development, we needed to see where we were at. You know, we do the same thing with our students in our classrooms, that in order to, really begin to teach and things, you have to have a general idea of where your students are at. And we felt the same thing was appropriate with staff. So we're going to be assessing both our teachers through Atomic Learning, and then we'll also be assessing our students in grades 3, 5, and 8. And then Stacy's going to be working with us and compiling that data from these assessments to help us figure out where we go next. And that's really kind of where we're at right now. If you want to go to the next slide, I think the next slide is about Atomic Learning. Atomic Learning is the staff assessment we're going to be using. And what we really like about Atomic Learning more than anything is once you've gone through and you've taken those assessments, it provides different professional development, and you can, administrators can go through and assign specific professional development, but there's also just a vast amount of resources available that allows, really for us to provide more of an e-learning situation versus versus the other situation where basically here's the computer, figure out what you can do. And it gets teachers where they need to be, but it also gives us some important data about how ready are we to go to one-to-one right away. And then I think the next one, I'm trying to think what the next, actually go back one slide, I'm sorry. I didn't talk too much about the student, this has e-learning, but it's actually learning.com that we're going to be using for to assess our students' technology skills. And we've chose grades 3, 5, 8, and 10 because we really only have this for the one year here, and so we couldn't, continually use that. We're hoping in the future to be able to look at those assessments and to get some ideas of where we're at, and then start to begin developing some of our own at some of the earlier grade levels as well. Let's see, the 3, 5, 8, and 10, we were hoping to be kind of give us some pre and post-test data based on the grade levels here to start with. So we at least have somewhere to begin with that. Okay, now we can go to the next slide. And the next slide, I think, was about the different devices. The next slide is about the devices we're piloting. And we purchased several different devices, and we're trying to kind of move them around through several different teachers, through several different disciplines, and allow our students to use them to get a feel for what kind of device would be most appropriate at the different grade levels, what's kind of preferred, as well as, what's going to work with our infrastructure and what's not, and so on. And so we've got several different devices being tried throughout. I know several of us, at least in the upper grades, have been using some student surveys to get some feedback. But then we're also compiling a list of pros and cons to kind of just see where teachers are at and kind of what they're feeling. We've tried several, we have different platforms, different OSs, and all kinds of things, whether it's a tablet or a desktop or all kinds of things, just to see what works best. And so that's kind of where we're at with that. But those are out and about, and they're kind of moving in, and so that's being compiled as we, well, really, maybe not as we speak, but at this time. Okay, the next slide. And actually I just saw Tina said something about Speak Up surveys, and I forgot to mention that. We are doing a survey with our teachers in addition to the assessment tool, just to get some feedback as to what are they using, and that's something Stacy is going to kind of compile for us as well. The next, and really this is kind of the last part of our one-to-one initiative. We've been looking at the potential of a BYOD, so that students are one-to-one, or what other schools are using, you know, and we said close to us, Munster, Crown Point, Hammond, but we really wanted to make sure that we looked at both options to see what really is going to work for us and how others are using those things. And that's, we've kind of been around. I know we've had a couple teachers go to some different places as far as PBL to see how those, some of your new tech schools are implementing their one-to-one technology as well. But mainly here, we're looking at how are they implementing in those kinds of things. If you want to go to the next slide. And then I think we mentioned PBL, but I don't know if that slide got put in there. One of the things with our corporation technology plan is we're also really trying to work closely with our corporation curriculum team, and that those two things really need to be moving together is what we've really started to discover, is that as we're kind of talking about all this technology and we're talking about our movements and changes in curriculum, that they really are playing, you know, working together, and that's our goal. And so our TILT meetings are really focusing on not only our technology, but also where we're going with our curriculum and how we can really truly integrate those things so that they're not, you know, here's our technology curriculum and here's everything else. We really want them to work together. You know, we're looking to, at this point, more than necessarily finalize our implementation of one-to-one, we're really looking more to finalize the timeline and how are we going to implement, you know, because we're thinking we're probably going to implement a little bit smaller scale to start with some classroom pilots and things like that. And then really the goal is to build a professional development matrix from the assessment data that we've used to figure out where our strengths are and what professional development we need to provide for teachers so that we can really truly implement and integrate the technology. And I think, and yeah, Mike was just bringing up that we also have some teachers who are really integral in part of that, and really a couple in each building who that's kind of their role as far as to use the idea of teacher trainers as opposed to, you know, necessarily paying for a lot of different people to come in and work with that. And I think that's everything, I think, if I remember right.
I believe it's your last slide, yeah. I just wanted to say I'm really excited for you guys, particularly because you represent our Northwestern region, and I don't know if we have anyone else in the audience in the webinar who is in that particular area of the state, but if they are, I hope they say hi, because you're going to be a great mentoring group as we move forward, and I can't wait to see what happens with your professional development. You have really great ideas going on. Our next presenter, oh, you're absolutely welcome. Thank you. Our next presenters are from South Madison Community School Corporation, a little closer to Indianapolis, kind of in the center. They're surrounded by lots of one-to-ones. And Laura Miller and Ryan Watts will be sharing their progress with us. Thank you both for being here.
Hi, thank you. Ryan is not with us today. We have a getting ready for ECA issue, so he's busy doing that. I wanted to, when they called, you can go to the next slide. When they called, the first thing that came to mind was, how did I build my team? And I think that piece has some pros and cons to it. I did kind of think through DEBONO'S thinking hats, because you want a little flavor of everybody at the table. The picture of the hands represents a little bit to me that you wanted people that are innovators on the edge, but you also want people that are kind of timid with it, and then everybody puts their hands together to make it. In our thoughts, if you don't have a range of people at the table and you just have your super users, then a lot of people in the building can't see themselves. But if I have, for example, one of my principals is rather timid, and so my teachers are saying, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And so we wanted to get a little bit of that. And our thought would be that by having that range, we get all the questions, and that helped us answer some of those questions we've gotten from teachers by having that range at the table. Okay, next slide. When Michelle asked me about the learning, the three things that stuck out for me were share, explore, and share. That one was huge. Find your partners, and then develop your rollout piece. So I'll talk a little bit about each of those. The first one, share, explore, share, next slide, is probably to me the most critical. We've used differentiated instruction, all the things that have rolled through, project-based learning, centers, technology embedded. We use all of those. We work through all of those. We've got professional development for it. But in many people's minds, this is still a huge shift in what they're thinking. You know, giving up that textbook, finding a way to make it more student-directed, are all things teachers love the idea of, but fear how that works and the consequences of that. So we've been having conversations about the instructional needs of students and how that looks. I think the site visits have been very, very valuable. In fact, we're looking to send more with that. Before I forget, there was one thing I wanted to say about the team. In the grant, they asked us to confine that to about 5 or 6 people. And what we have found is that's not enough people at the table. It doesn't give me the stakeholders that I need. So we've actually built a second layer around that and are inviting more teachers to the site visits, to the conversation, and so forth. That may be our core focus group, our core leadership group, but we needed more people at the table. And I would really probably recommend more in the 16 people range from our experience. When we looked at this, part of our conversations dealt around what our capacity and our needs were. That's human capacity, where our teachers, both presenters before me talked a little bit about that. We've been exploring where our teachers are at, what their needs are, what their fears are. I'm intrigued by the fact of Atomic Learning Survey. I've heard a little bit about that. I was happy to hear a little bit more about their resource. But we also need to look at our infrastructure, not only the bandwidth, but what support structures do you have in the technology, what support structures do you have in the coaching capacity. We've been doing some PLCs where teachers are kind of leading it. Our professional development runs through the school year and summer already, and we're really ramping up that. One thing that we're using as a resource this summer is the e-learning summer conferences from DOE. I'm hoping to send a range of people to those. I think those will be very beneficial because it's practitioners talking to practitioners, which I think is huge. And then the last one on there was about building slow. Our plan is not to jump in all in one jump. We understand that second order change is hard. Not only is it hard, but it's hard with the day-to-day things we do. I think we need to show people that this is going to be stressful, and we need to show them that we care about them and we're going to support them, but at the same time, we need to move forward for the benefit of kids. So we've kind of taken on the avenue that while it is going to be hard, if we can get over that learning curve, I think we will find a lot of benefits from it. Teachers want to give students individualized attention. They want to have opportunity for creative development in the class, and I think that these types of strategies, from the flipped classroom to a formative assessment and so forth, will all help that. One thing we've done this year is we've got My Big Campus, and are very pleased with what opportunities we provide for students and teachers through that. Our high school took off the best with My Big Campus. They are the strongest so far. We had some teachers flipping classrooms and we actually have one gentleman who this is actually his second or third year flipping, and he actually this year switched to a mastery flipped classroom and really doing some innovative things, and we're using him in some of our training and our sharing and so forth. We also had 5-Star come. They were a big benefit in helping with my big campus training and some of the other things. So that's our share, my Share Explored Share. You can go ahead and go to the next slide for partners. We have a range of partners. I mentioned 5-Star. We've done some training through them. We've also are participating in their, currently their e-learning online class. I have 2 people participating in that. The technology audit and the instructional audit, we are wrapping that up, and they'll be reporting back to us this week on that. So I'm excited. They actually came in for the instructional audit and did site visits in each of our buildings, observed classrooms, talked to the principal, and did focus groups with students and teachers and asked some questions. As I said, that's coming this week. One piece that I did hear, which I thought was really interesting, they asked a question about whether kids would prefer to keyboard or thumb type. And when they asked the question, 80% of our kids of our middle school group said they'd rather thumb type. The principal then asked the question a little bit differently and said, well, what if it was a 2-page or 3-page paper you had to type? And the ratio did go down, but about 50% of the kids still said they would rather thumb type that paper. Part of that coming from, you know, do you get a tablet? If you have a tablet, then you get the on-screen keyboard. Adults are fearful of the on-screen keyboard, but kids are not. Kids are very adaptable to it. So we'll be getting their results back here shortly. The other partner we have is Project Red. They are out of Michigan. It's also called One-to-One Institute. It's a partnership up there. They have been very helpful in providing us some resources. We have a survey that we did for parents. We're contemplating a blended BYOD. We don't feel that our population would all have the device, and we're very concerned about making sure it's accessible to all. So we're looking at what we could do in a blended environment where some kids might bring BYOD, where other kids are using district devices that they've possibly done through textbook rental. We're going to be looking into what the options are with that. So they helped us with a parent survey, and there were some interesting results in that. The parents were very positive on the fact of bringing more technology into the buildings, and even towards students being allowed. There were some big questions from parents, one being, would other kids be on my kid's device, and how will it be protected, and those things. So we know we need to have lots of parent communication. They also provided us with a fiscal document, a budgeting document that is fairly elaborate, and we are trudging through that. Other partners, I mentioned DOE, some of the things are listed there, and then some of the research support in places we've gone. We have been working with Apple, and I will say that Apple is very supportive. We're looking at an elementary, possibly middle school iPad implementation with secondary to high school. We're still unsure, but they've been very helpful in connecting us with other schools, talking to us about the options, and sharing with us what support they have for after the PAP. So go ahead and go to rollout. Next slide. First thing we need to focus on is curriculum needs. Why bother? We are a fairly successful school district, and so you get some of that pushback. That was one thing that our representative from Project Red, noted and commented on, that when school districts are academically more successful, it is harder to say why bother, why change. So how do you implement that? And one piece that came shining through to us was we've had some graduates come back and say they felt very successful and very well prepared academically. But as far as the instructional process, as far as the technological world, they felt very far behind and had a big learning curve. So our high school is very intrigued, and our high school teachers are very intrigued with help closing that gap for our students. We know the roads could be rough, but we want to take everybody along. So our plan right now is to go slower, not too slow, but to definitely not roll out K-12. We are looking at our capacity and strengths and some of our financial needs to help us. So go ahead and go next. Kind of a big picture draft. We're really thinking for next year, get a device in teachers' hands. One thing that I personally found kind of intriguing is all of our teachers have computers. We've got computer carts. We've got computer labs. Elementary have them in their classroom. We have projectors and handheld Mobies, which basically is a computer in my hand. I mean, it functions to run my computer, but they don't feel like they have a mobile device. So there is a difference in their mind, which perception is reality, that a computer is different than an iPad or tablet or laptop. So we felt like that really needed to be our first place that we went, and so that's where we'll be heading first, along with a wealth of professional development. We have not ironed out the details yet, but I'm really thinking the peer coach needs to possibly even be next year before it actually is one-to-one to help the teachers begin to transition. And then the next piece on the pilot, the following year, is when we are talking about doing pilots. And right now what we're talking about doing it is for your, especially elementary group, teacher proposals. Let the teachers come to us. Let our early starters, our innovators, come and say, here's what I want to do, here's how I can see it working, and build that classroom model, that visitation site in the building for the next layer to roll out and for that ongoing support. Our high school, we're looking at possibly a cohort. There we have a unique situation where in 2014-15, our high school will be at capacity, if not over, and so we've got some struggles there. So they're looking at possibly a cohort of teachers and students that would then run on a different schedule, and how that could help us with the process. And then finally, the deployment, again, by levels. We've not made our determination, rolling it out grade by grade. We know we can't roll it out K-12, but how do we roll that out? How do we use the resources we have in the building to support that deployment? So next, just lots of decisions. So many pieces and so many layers. We really felt like it was almost a moral imperative that we do this, and so we are moving down that path. The financial piece is a struggle, and how do you layer that? Lots of decisions on, do you buy, do you lease, BYOD, all of those will really more likely be in more of the next year kind of process while we're building that teacher's piece. We see our implementation development as almost over a year and a half, 2 years, because we've just got so many questions and pieces, and we need to bring our staff to where they're ready for it. One piece I would say in that coaching piece, I think that is probably one of the most critical components of this. Whether you do BYOD, laptop, whatever device you have, that support for the teachers that's easily accessible, non-intimidating, ongoing, somebody to help with strategies, I think is probably the most critical part. One of the site visits we went to, they said they felt like they were working themselves out of a job, and I would just highly disagree with that. I don't see it as a short term. I know places have funded coaches, be it reading coach, instructional coach, technology coach, through grants, and I think that you can maybe start that way, but I think it needs to be part of our culture. Some research we did a few years ago with beginning teachers in some of the other countries, when teachers begin, and really for many teachers, implementing one-to-one is almost like starting your career over. Some countries only teach half a day, And the other half is all about the coaching and planning. And we have such a small time that we need to really optimize that time that we have and provide easy access for teachers. So, next slide.
Laura, I hate to interrupt you, and I know we've had some issues that have caused us to lose a little bit of time, but we have just a few minutes left, and like the last 15 minutes. So if we could get through your last couple of slides so that we can allow Marianne to share Project 24. Thank you. So sorry about that.
No problem, no problem. Just a couple things here. Policies, don't forget those. Communicate with everybody. I tried to list the bullets. I assume you're going to post our presentation somewhere or offer them for notes. I'm hoping to get the other two.
Yeah, we will always post things in the Learning Lab, and then of course I'll put it on pictures on all the places.
Okay, great. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The one piece here, I guess, the little wisdoms, I think the one that probably rings truest to me, and I heard this years ago, so I don't know the source, mow around the redwoods. So many times we hear, well, this person's not ready and they're not just in. Sometimes you just have to move forward for the benefit of kids, and that's really what we're deciding to do. Go ahead and go to the next slide. It's inevitable. I think these are comments from my staff, just that, you know, we have to do this for kids. And then the last slide, the next slide is just some resources, some video clips that we found very, have started really good conversations and so forth. So I will wrap it there.
Thank you, and I'm very sorry about that. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Great. Well, that does bring us to Marianne and her work with Project 24. So we're going to go ahead and turn it over so we can maximize this time. Thank you. Is Marianne unmuted?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, great. So I'm very excited because everything you all are saying absolutely supports, I think, the points behind Project 24. And I love hearing about the learner-centered approach and all the different things you're doing to make sure that you're meeting the students' needs. And yet there are so many things that have to go into that to make digital learning a success, I would say. And so the Alliance, about a year ago, actually, we started thinking about all the things that are happening in the next 24 months with the college and career ready standards and Common Core standards and the online assessments that are coming. And at the same time, we have all these, you know, constrained budgets, and there's a lot of different demands being placed on schools and districts. And so while we had done a lot of work with Digital Learning Day, and I know Sarah Hall had a chance to talk with all of you, and Indiana has clearly been an all-star with that, we realized that there was some real support needed at the district and school level in terms of planning. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see we developed a framework, which we are calling the Project 24 framework, and students are obviously at the center. But I think the key here is that technology can never just be by itself or on the side, and I think those of you who have shared today have done a tremendous job of explaining that. And there are all these other pieces like professional learning and budget and resources, curriculum and instruction, use of time. All of them have to be part of that overall planning, and we can't ignore just how much they affect each other, because you can't just change curriculum and instruction without changing data and assessment if you really want to maximize the potential. And so Project 24 is an effort to provide resources to districts and schools across the country. Some states are actually starting to kind of take this on and working with districts together, which is kind of interesting too. But it really is a district and school focused effort to help you all through that planning process. And so we have several different things, and I appreciated some of these have already actually been mentioned. So you can, if you look at the next slide, go ahead and register for Project 24, and that just gets you on the list for what is out there. But I think a really meaty piece that we've been able to develop and offer is this self-assessment, where you can go ahead through and as a district team, it is specifically designed to be taken as a team, you can go ahead through and see how ready is your district, right? So what is your digital learning readiness survey or ability? And when you do that, you will get a report that is personalized to you. So it goes through each of those gears, as we call them, and it tells you where you are. And it takes about an hour and a half or 2 hours to complete. And I think some of you have already had a chance to do that. But I do recommend it because I think, you know, we joked at the beginning it's kind of like a Cosmo survey. You can know where you stand. But it is really well thought out, research-based. It's been piloted by actually 28 districts before we even released it. And so you can imagine there's been a lot of thought into it, and I think it's a great place to start. We also didn't stop there. If you look at the next slide, you'll see we actually launched a MOOC for educators that we kicked off on April 8th, and we will be offering this again in in the fall. And I've actually been really, really actively involved with this course, and we have 2,600 people from around the country that registered. And what's been amazing to me is the level of interest that people have, and they're talking about all the different kinds of questions that you are, and they're going in depth on them, and we're bringing experts together. And so I really do encourage you, you know, if you have a chance in September, and you can already go on there actually to the Friday Institute's website, and you can go ahead and express interest in that. It's a 7-week course, and yes, it is massive in that there are 2,600 others in there right now, but the discussions become very, very personal. And you know, you can go on some site visits, but you can't visit everywhere. And what's amazed me, and I already posted one link to the Quakertown one, is we have Scott Smith as one of the experts on there and several others like that who are on there and talking personally and answering questions. And so that's another part of Project 24, I think, that really does give some great options and some great resources for you in what you can do. And then the whole time while this is happening, there are also some other pieces to this. We are offering webinars, and we are offering different kinds of live chats, and we have a blog series. And so there's a chance for you to constantly kind of check in, and what we're trying to do is pull the best resources that exist into one place so that you can, in fact, you know, have access, because I know how busy you all are. You don't have time. I know that is the biggest challenge here. And so when you think about it, I think there really are just some great things that we're able to pull together. And I've been in the ed tech world for over, you know, a decade now, and so really trying to say, what do people need and who do you need to hear from, and what do you want to ask Scott Smith or the superintendent in Quakertown or other places. And so that really is, in a nutshell, I think, what Project 24 is all about. But I encourage you to go take a look, because there's great resources, but there's also times where if you can just go listen to 3 of these experts talking about the use of time, it may just make you think about something in a different way as you're going through this planning process. And that is the last piece I'll mention. I've talked a little bit about some of the experts, but we actually have a team of experts, which are 16 individuals from across the country representing superintendents, CTOs, principals, and teachers. And those are the ones that they kind of take turns on whether they're a webinar or they do a blog that month or they're part of the MOOC Ed. And I think that's a pretty, like, I've just been amazed at how generous they are with their time. And they said, we messed up. Or, you know, one of the superintendents the other day just kept saying, it gets really messy first. And but then to hear how they took that, it has to get messy first, and made it into just this incredibly effective program is, I think, a great thing to do. So, so I'm just hoping they are free resources. The course is free. The self-assessment is free. We would just, I mean, this is just, you know, the Alliance really believes in trying to help all districts meet the needs of kids and continue to, you know, increase the graduation rate and make sure kids graduate college and career ready. So I hope, Michelle, that's it in a nutshell. I'm talking fast, but hopefully that gets some of those resources out there that might really support the exact work that you all seem to be doing such a tremendous job at, but I know it's such a big job.
It is a big job, but we really appreciate having organizations doing this kind of work, and the value is very clear, and so we definitely encourage people to look. You're one of several that offer free or relatively affordable services, and that is one of those things I think that takes away the hurdle of, you mentioned time. That's definitely
that's a big hurdle.
and the second hurdle would be money. And so we would hate to think that people aren't questioning it and working on that big piece that was mentioned by a number of our, well, I think all 3 of them mentioned culture. infrastructure is critical, and the technology pieces are going to be instrumental, but the pedagogy, your focus on learning and teaching, and I stress learning because, and I know that, and I missed I can't see it, but I believe it's a student learning in the center of the visual. It's the learning that's critical, and so all of that cultural work can start happening early on, even if you are financially at the place where you're laying wires and buying devices. As a matter of fact, you don't want to do that first. So we love that you guys are available, and again, just that you're willing to share your time with us today to give us an insight to what's happening. I just wanted to see if anybody wants to verbally ask a question. You can unmute yourself, or Mary can help you if you notice on the chat window. I haven't seen any questions come up recently. I'll kind of give that some thinking time.
And really quickly, Michelle, I am going to post the link. I wrote a paper last year for the Alliance on the culture shift, and it became like 3 papers in one, although it's not that long. But it really talks about what learning needs to look like, what teaching needs to look like, and then how we support those teachers. But it has a lot of different resources in there, and especially the roles of the teacher for me have been a really helpful way to think about things. And so I'm going to go ahead and post that link because I think you've hit it on the head that if you don't change the culture, you can't really change anything else. And so I'm just going to post the link to that document here, and I promise it's not too long.
Okay, now aren't you guys all glad you came to this webinar because now you're getting insider information. This is wonderful. So while I'm still waiting, and you can interrupt any time to ask a question, I will let Mary go ahead and move our slide forward. I think she's going to share what webinars we have coming up, and then we're going to kind of shift back to our discussion. So this will give you a little bit of processing time.
Yeah, so we have a few webinars upcoming in May. One is scheduled, 2 are in the works. The first one is NBC Learn on May the 7th at 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you haven't been introduced to NBC Learn, it is just a phenomenal resource, and just with so many archived videos and stories and so much information. But that is available free to Indiana educators, students, parents through the end of the 2014-15 or 13-14 school year. I'm sorry. So it's available through the end of this school year and then through next school year. And we will have a couple of representatives from NBC Learn on, and we've had 2 webinars with them in the past, and those are archived in the 21st Century Learning Lab. You can find those there, and Michelle shared that link earlier. One thing that they're going to be doing this time is introducing their new series called The Science of Golf, so that should be pretty exciting. Also, we are planning a webinar on how teachers can stay connected to one another, to their learning network, and also work on some PD during the summer. We were talking at work the other day that this is the time that some teachers are getting their new assignments and possibly going to new grade levels or going to new subjects. So we're going to be scheduling a webinar on that topic, and then also one with some updates from some of our Classroom Innovation Grant school districts on the projects that they've done, just to give you some ideas of projects to do in your own schools, and maybe some people to get connected to get some ideas. Just again, building that learning network, and just trying to work on new things at your schools, and getting more just working on student achievement and performance. So that's what we've got planned for May. And Michelle's going to talk about our INE Learn Chat.
Thanks, Mary. And I put in the chat window that one of the topics from that Classroom Innovation Grant that we looked at is that coaching, which was mentioned in today's webinar. So that'll be something to watch for. I think coaching and PD and not doing things the way we've always done them are really important discussions. So discussions. I like to talk a little tiny bit, but I really love to tweet. and I hope that you guys are, if you're not in love with it, willing to try it out. We do Thursday evenings at 8 Eastern. We meet together on Twitter at the hashtag #INELearn. And it's a great beginner chat because we're still fairly new, and if you let us know that you're there and you want to participate, we will not let you get lost. Now, if you don't tell us you're there, then you're on your own. But as long as you're letting us know you're there, we will definitely keep you part of that discussion because we know it's kind of one of those things you got to get your grounding before you feel comfortable doing this. So I will put in the back channel a link. We also tweet that out. You can follow us at sign INELearn. We share out tons of information all week long, including the weekends, because teachers never stop working. And the discussion this week is actually going to be a continuation of today's webinar. So I have some notes and key ideas that came up, hints of questions that I got a little feel for. And if you have questions, please, it's never too late to ask. So go ahead and share those, and we invite you to join us Thursday night on Twitter. Okay, Mary. Because I know we're keeping people, if you're staying late, then you're just amazing. Here's our general contact information. We have our website, which is part of the DOE website. We're a hot topic under technologies. The Learning Lab, I already put the link in there. And you can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. Those links are also all listed on the Learning Lab. And as I mentioned, you can follow us at INELearn and access pretty much everything. So thank you all for being here this afternoon. We appreciate your patience. We are still working out some technicalities of using phones and WebEx, and so we appreciate your graciousness and hope you enjoy an afternoon that's free of too many rainstorms or blustery winds. Take care. Bye-bye.